There we go. Welcome everyone. My name is Liz Moak. I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations here at Rhodes College. And thank you for joining us for Careers in Tech. I think it's going to be a really, really good discussion today. And we'll just go across the line and let everyone introduce themselves. Just going to start in the top corner and go across, starting with Tracy.
So, Director of Alumni Relations, Class of '84, and my tech knowledge is extremely limited. Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy.
Jeremey Key, Class of 2013, and I'm currently a front-end software engineer at GrubHub.
Awesome. Demitri.
Hey everyone, I'm Demitri Jerrow. I'm Class of 2014, and I'm a product manager at Bloomberg.
Brian.
I'm Brian Darr, Class of '84. I'm currently Executive Vice President, Smart Cities at Ookla, but my background was actually I ran a company called Mosaic for 30 years before selling it to Ookla 2 years ago.
Okay.
Wireless industry.
Sandy.
Hey everyone, I'm Sandy George Tracy, Director of Career Services. I know nothing about tech, but I'm married to a CIO, so that's why I don't know anything. And the parent of a class of 2019.
Okay, and just going to get through to our panel, last panelist, Tierney.
Hello, I'm Tierney Jackson-Smith, Class of 2010, and I'm currently a BI developer for the Juice Plus company.
And Rick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi guys, I'm Ricky. I just graduated and I'm supposed to be starting work at EY next week as a risk. Actually, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but something to do with IT and risk. So
But you have a job.
Yes, I do have a job.
There you go. That's the important thing. You'll get to what you do later. So I've got a few questions prepared for our panelists, and then if there are any other questions kind of following that, we'll get right into those. So first, kind of just want, this is opportunity for all four panelists to answer this. How did you utilize your Rhodes experience to get into your given field within tech? So we'll just start with Jeremy.
Yeah. So I was pretty lucky, kind of having an idea that I wanted to do computer science when I got to college. So I kind of went straight into that major and started taking those courses. And I had the opportunity to have a couple internships there. I remember Sandy helped me get one at FedEx. That was my first one. And I worked in, I think it was a securities team. Got there, didn't really know what I was doing, but it was a good first kind of entry and foray into kind of the business world. You kind of get a lot of your nervousness out. You start talking to your coworkers, kind of getting a feel for what you need to do. And I also had another internship at First Tennessee while I was at Rhodes, and both of those kind of gave me that opportunity to kind of work in different fields too. And at First Tennessee, I was working in the QA team. Not as glamorous there. It was kind of a lot of reading over test scripts and looking and just automating them over and over again. But it still gave me a chance to kind of see another opportunity, another thing in the field, if I'm interested in it or not. And for that one, I was not. So I went away from QA. And for the rest of the time, I kind of started on taking a lot of the computer science classes, kind of building a basis of programming. And that's really what helped me when I got to Vanderbilt. My advisor at Rhodes, Betsy Sanders, I did research with her one year and had the opportunity to travel up to Vanderbilt and use their lab where they had a lot of motion capture systems. We were doing virtual reality research. So that kind of definitely got me interested in going to Vanderbilt, and that's where I gained a lot more knowledge in computer science. And then from there, got into New York after a fun job hunt, which is I'll say that for later, but don't get discouraged. Just jobs take a while. But yeah, that was a fun job in grad school, and I eventually came to New York, got the MBA, and 3 years later, currently at GrubHub.
Okay, great. Demitri.
Yeah, so I think unlike some of our other panelists, I may have a less direct route into technology. I was an economics major at Rhodes, and I actually started my career in financial valuation at a financial services firm in Memphis. And in that first year, quickly learned that although I liked some of the analysis and modeling, writing equity reports was not in my future. And so, and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I also will echo the job hunt adventure that Jeremy just mentioned. And I probably applied to jobs for close to a year and trying to figure out what I wanted to do and move into. And through that process, targeted a few cities, knew I wanted to move into technology more in just like a business role, and was able to make some connections at a few startups out of Chicago, and ended up getting into an analyst job at one of them. And like most startups, their company dynamics changed. They had an opening on the product team. I thought that was like supporting in an analyst function, and it ended up working directly with engineering, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so really just kind of hit that sink or swim, but like got to work with a lot of very patient and intelligent colleagues that helped me learn the ropes there. And you know, after 3 years there, started leading the API business, and I'm now will be starting my master's in computer science at Georgia Tech this fall. So it's very doable. And I say that as an experience from going from a totally different domain and pivoting over the course of a few years.
Okay. Thanks, Demitri. Tierney?
All right. So Rhodes was definitely my foot in the door in a few different ways. Like Jeremy, I came into Rhodes knowing that I wanted to major in computer science, but up until that point, coming from high school, my understanding of what someone did with the computer science degree was you're either programming, which I like writing code, or you're maybe doing like hardware stuff, like, I don't know, Geek Squad computer repairs, which is also fun. But being at Rhodes showed me another facet of it. The information management side of it. So my journey started as I was actually the first RSA for the data services department. They process your admission documents. So my job was to work out the process for digitizing those. So when you mailed in your transcripts to get accepted, your test scores, all that stuff had to be scanned and put into an information system for the admission counselors to, you know, read while they're on the road doing all these different trips to high schools. So that process, that was sort of my first experience with managing an information system. And that was really transformative. It kind of like showed me that there's more to tech than just like the traditional like programming. So I graduated from Rhodes and then immediately started working there in the same data services department. I had one of my last classes was a database course with Dr. Sanders. And so I immediately got to put those skills to use in data services. They do a lot of SQL programming. In addition to supporting the admission office, they also do BI work, business intelligence work. So basically that's turning raw data from Banner into useful information for the registrar, for the bursar, for your professors. And so I was part of the team that wrote those reports. And again, that was another information management position. It grew my passion for clean data. It gave me some good experience with business intelligence, like the world of BI. And while I was in data services, I went to U of M and got my my master's in management information systems. And about 5 years in data services, and then I moved over to the information services team at Rhodes. And so you may or may not know that's the IT team and the library team merged. So I joined the IT side of that team. And from there, this was like a really good full circle for me, my Rhodes experience. I went from being a student who like used Banner Web, like the front end side of it, to being in data services, like actually using that Banner data to make reports. And then when I moved over to information services, I was responsible for the piping, like the architecture that gets data from Banner downstream into the data warehouse that data services uses. Getting data from Banner downstream into the course evaluation system for you to do your evaluations, getting it downstream into DegreeWorks. And so that integration work was really valuable. I got to touch, so I got a lot of experience with the Microsoft suite of business intelligence tools, and then also the integration tools in the Microsoft suite. Also there's some Linux boxes on campus, so I got some Linux experience through all this. Got to touch all sorts of different types of software. Got a little system administrator experience, just because it's such a small team, everybody wears multiple hats. So I got a chance to touch on a lot, like I said, a lot of business intelligence, a lot of management of information systems, but also a little networking, a little sysadmin stuff, a little bit of some everything. And so I was really lucky in that these positions, these good, fruitful positions were available at Rhodes. And then very, very recently, an opportunity presented itself at another organization. And I recently made the very difficult decision to leave the nest and take this good experience and join the business intelligence team at the global headquarters for Juice Plus. And so now I'm taking that good experience that I gained at Rhodes, and I'm doing very similar work, helping maintain basically getting data from their version of Banner into a data warehouse for decision makers. Yeah, it's been a journey.
Hey, and Brian.
All right. Well, let me start by saying that I came from a background that was about as low tech as you could imagine. So I grew up in Chattanooga before ever getting to Rhodes. Grew up in the restaurant business. So the highest tech thing we had in that kitchen was this brand spanking new thing called a microwave oven back in the 1970s. So I went back that far to kind of make the point that if you're choosing a field in tech, you need to be well aware of the fact that the rate of change is accelerating, right? That's something that we're all going to have to contend with. The rate of change on technology is accelerating, and so when I came to Rhodes in September of 1980, I mean, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. I didn't really even know what I wanted to major in, but I got very interested in this international studies class that I took from a professor that Tracy and I both had named Dr. John Copper. And it just fascinated me. And it had, it was a mixture of a number of different things, and I didn't even know why I liked it, I think at the beginning, but it had politics in it, it had geography in it, and I'd always loved maps. And ultimately, that's what I built a business around. But when I came out of school in 1984 as an international studies major, I was like, what the hell do I want to do with this? I took those classes because the subject matter interested me, but I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do ultimately when I got out. And so I worked a stint. That first job when you got out of school just to pay the bills, right, was with this thing called Goldsmith's Department Store, which is now part of Macy's. And I worked in a couple of different departments there. But I found an ad. I'd heard about this new thing coming out called a cellular telephone. And the very first network was launched in late 80s. Chicago, and another one in DC. And so in 1984, you were literally having first large country. And so in 1985, I talked my way into a sales job at Cellular One of Memphis. We didn't even have our own network. We were reselling off of the Bell South Mobility Network at the time. And these are names that nobody knows anymore because they've all been rolled up into what these national operators that we know today. I discovered that my customers were having a problem. When they traveled with their phones, their calls would not follow them. Sometimes they could make calls, sometimes they couldn't, but no one could ever reach them. And think about it, you had a Memphis telephone number that someone was trying to dial in Chicago or in New York or in Miami or in Los Angeles. It just didn't work. The technology wasn't there for your calls to actually find you. And every different city had something called a roamer access number. It was a telephone number like calling a pager. Some of you may not, pager? What the hell's a pager, right? What is he talking about? But you would dial a separate telephone number that was a back door into that local network, and then you would dial the user's telephone number. So you had to have this list of telephone numbers that you would give your business partner, your spouse, whatever, right? Whoever you wanted to be able to reach you, a client, an important client. Here's my telephone number. I'm going to be in Minneapolis for the weekend, but you can reach me by dialing this number and then dialing my mobile number. Every city was different. And so I started putting together a list of cities you could go to, and I would, on my own time, call and do the research. And when the other sales reps found out what I had, that I had this thing that I was giving away to my customers, they said, oh my God, can I Xerox? And so ultimately, I started a business in 1988, a month before my 26th birthday, left my job and founded this business that would produce little printed booklets that would tell you how to use your phone for every city you went to throughout North America. And that was the beginning of the business. About 3 years into that, I had my clients calling me saying, can you do maps? We didn't have all these national operators today. It was like every market was owned by somebody different almost. Or at least they weren't contiguous to one another. And they'd say, I've got this market to the north, I've signed an agreement with them, and now our customers can go there and it doesn't cost them anything extra. Or now they can go over here to this other market to the west and it's going to cost them only 50 cents a minute instead of $1 a minute. Now think about that. And we're so used to using our phones when we try, and just not even thinking about it costing us any more if we're traveling to another city. And not a lot more if we're traveling even to another country anymore. It might be a daily charge. This was $1 a minute that you were typically going to pay to go from Denver to Seattle or Dallas to Nashville. And so over time we had to make that transition from making our money from ink on paper. That's how we sold our information, because this was pre-internet. And we would print millions of these books and then millions of these maps that would be used to hand out in the stores. Here's where you can go and use your phone. And outside of these areas, your phone won't work. And that was the whole business model for years. But we did transition, and it was a painful transition to online, and stopped all the printed material after a period of time. And then ended up building research tools and collecting this information globally. So we built a database that tracked geographically with geographic files of all the carriers all over the world and what they covered with each layer of the technology that they had deployed. Ultimately, there's a lot more of this story, but I don't want to take up any more of your time right now. But ultimately sold the business 2 years ago to a company called Ookla. Most of you, if you do know them, you know them by their primary product, which is called Speed Test. So if you've ever run a speed test on your phone, it's probably been Ookla's Speed Test. It's speedtest.net. We're the #1 app in the App Store for speed tests, and we've got 11,000 servers scattered around the world. So you're always pretty close to one. We have 10 million people a day before this health crisis that were taking speed tests. It's now many millions more than that. I'm personally working now with states and municipalities as they're trying to get a handle on network performance. We just launched a big pilot with the state of Georgia to help them figure out where they can actually park buses with Wi-Fi rangers so that the kids can, if they can't go back into school, that they could actually come either sit on the bus or sit in a vehicle in a parking lot and be able to interact with a remote classroom. So anyway, that's sorry for the length of that explanation.
No, it's all good.
I'm going to answer your question. How did that Rhodes College degree ultimately
There you go.
help me? And it was the ability, it was the sales, honestly. It was the socialization that you do, but it was also the breadth of the learning that you get and the education that you get from a liberal arts degree. And because I could walk into, and I had to first be successful in sales in order to, have those customers, in order to be able to keep my job, my sales job, and then ultimately learning where the pain point was for the customer and how could I go fix that. But it was the networking, it was the relationships, it was how to go and establish that. And that broad sense of learning allows you to just jump into a conversation without any real fear. You can, if you've got a broad learning base, a broad educational base, then I think that helps more than anything in terms of rising through the company ranks and being able to talk to people outside of your comfort zone that ultimately provides you with opportunities that you might not otherwise have.
Fantastic. And I will say everyone also answered my second question, which was how did you get from that starting point to where you are now? So fantastic. Good job, guys. But one thing that I always ask our panelists on whether it's industry specific or even city specific, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you had known when you were entering the job market or entering the field? And we can start with Jeremy.
There's a lot I didn't know when I was starting out. One specific thing I can say is if you see a position that and you don't necessarily meet every qualification on that paper, still apply for it. I probably passed a lot of opportunities because I'm like, oh, I don't have this specific thing on this line. I'm not going to do it. They're not going to want me. But a lot of my learning experience, you're going to get a good basis in college, but a lot of the skills that you need in the business world, you're going to learn when you get your job. Like, don't go into the job assuming like, oh, I have to know every single thing I'm about to do. Like, there's going to be a learning curve wherever you go. And I definitely learned a lot at the MBA. I had 3 months of web development experience when I started there. And my 3 years there made it possible for me to get to GrubHub, where I'm at now. So you'll definitely get a lot of on-the-job learning. So if you see something that you want to do, if you're interested in it, just go for it. Don't try to assume you have to meet every single qualification on that list.
Okay, thank you. Demitri?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, Jeremy. And one other thing I think I've learned in my experience is it's okay to be patient and really just value learning from your colleagues. And so always try to take that advantage of the knowledge base of just your peers in the room, whether it's virtual or in an office somewhere. Before I started my actual formal technical education, I learned everything I needed in terms of working with engineering, working with designers, and even the foundations of product management on the job, largely through peers and or mentors. And so as you continue to work with those individuals, you hone your skills, you can have great conversations and discussions, but you may not realize how much Rhodes has empowered you to think in multiple domains and really work cross-functionally, even when you're in a pretty technical role. And I think that is an asset that you should always leverage, because the engineer, as a product manager, my foundational role is to build products that are valuable to our users or our customers in partnership with engineers or design. I'm not an engineer and I'm not a designer, but I have to work with those teams very closely to help to meet our business objectives. And so you'd be surprised just your experience in working across the liberal arts spectrum and having to write papers or whatever, and regardless of your major, and how much those communication skills will help you when you're working in multiple domains to achieve some of these objectives. So always try to take advantage and take those benefits from your colleagues, because you can really learn a lot from those other individuals.
Thank you. Tierney.
Yeah. So one thing that I wish I had done just in general is take better advantage of the opportunities at Rhodes that are designed to help prepare you for getting out there in the real world. By being here and participating in this panel, and that's a good step, paying attention to the resources that career services has to offer, the networking opportunities that the alumni office provides. I weaseled my way out of doing an internship. I can't remember which F requirement it was, but I smooth talked my way out of it, because at the time I was so focused on I'm busy with X, Y, and Z. I've got obligations at home, and just felt like it was another thing on my plate. And now I really wish that I had taken advantage of that and done internships when I had the opportunity. It worked out for me. I had a great career at Rhodes, and that job prepared me to do great things. But I wonder what things would have been like had I taken better advantage of that. And I'll also say something that I hadn't considered. The trajectory that I did take, it definitely opened my eyes to the different facets and the different forms of working in technology. So that's something that would have saved me a little angst also, just knowing the different applications of working with technology. And also, don't count out academia like that. Working at Rhodes is a very nice job, a great breadth of experience. It's almost sort of like liberal arts, but from a technical perspective, getting to take me in different places. But yeah, don't count out working in higher ed.
Thanks, Tierney. Brian.
There we go. I had to unmute. There's so many things I guess I could say about it, but I would certainly agree with some of the things that Demitri had said. I agree with what all the panelists have said so far. But you really never stop learning. I mean, Rhodes is really just the beginning of your education, okay, of your adult education, because once you get out there in that business world, you're going to be learning so many things. And I do think that Rhodes prepares people very well to continue to learn. I mean, the business that I started and had to build from the ground up, there were so many different skill sets. I had to know how to write. I had to know how to talk to people. I had to teach myself new software packages that were coming out. Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop were some of the later ones that I had to learn. They didn't even exist when I started. I was using early versions of drawing programs and photography and scanning software. And you just have to constantly, keep up to date. But that again, that breadth of education is going to provide you with a lot of different opportunities. I would say, what do I wish I had known beforehand. I mean, aside from the price of Apple stock, right? I would say that, you know, I could have been more bold, okay, in my approach. Do not be shy. Do not hesitate to ask a question. Even if you get yourself a really nice job with a company that pays you well, provides you good benefits, you know, you need to continually ask yourself, you know, is this what I want to continue to do? Okay. But whether it is or not, you want to excel within that company, and you need to raise your hand, and you need to ask questions, and you need, while being respectful, of course, but make yourself known. If you want to sit in the back and just listen, you are not going to be noticed. The people who are going to be noticed are the ones who are going to be willing to take a little bit of a risk. And that's more than, sometimes that's more than just raising your hand. It's volunteering to take on a project, and stepping up and accepting responsibility, because that is so much of what I learned I needed as I was hiring people. I needed people who had enthusiasm. There is no substitute for enthusiasm, period. I would hire someone into a position that they didn't have a whole lot of experience for if I thought they were willing to actually pick up the ball and run with it. And if they had just a part of what I wanted. Jeremy was talking about, you know, don't, if you don't meet all of the requirements on the, you know, for the job that you're looking at, if you meet some of those requirements, go ahead and apply, right, Jeremy? I mean, go ahead and apply for that job, because the way that people write up these job postings is that they're looking for the perfect candidate, and most of them will never find the perfect candidate. They just won't. They're not going to meet all of the criteria, and you'll go look at these job postings now, and it'll say, you know, and you're looking for starting positions, and it'll still say 2 to 3 years experience. What? That's a starting position requires 2 to 3 years experience. Oh, come on. Don't let that stop you. Just dive right in, apply for the positions that you want. And at a minimum, if you get the interview, even if you don't get the job, you will learn things. You will learn things that will help you in the next interview.
Okay, so that kind of concludes the questions that I prepared for our candidates. Are there any questions from either Ricky or Brennan, or Sandy or Tracy? Do y'all have anything y'all want to add or ask our panelists today? Hi, Brennan, your volume's very low.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Cool. What advice would, this is pretty much for anyone, you give someone who's experiencing like application fatigue? I have this like spreadsheet of jobs I've applied to, and once it hit like triple digits and I still like didn't get a job, I was like, I'm kind of tired of this. It just seems kind of bleak, especially in like a pandemic.
Anybody want to?
Yeah, I gave a little insight into kind of what the process I had to go through. The advice is stick with it. I think Demitri said he was looking for about a year. I started when I was waiting to graduate, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get it. I got my master's now. I'm like, all right, here comes the job. I got no, okay, here comes the job. And that lasted, it was probably about a year. I started, I think, my senior year in grad school. And I was like, all right, just keep going, just keep going. A lot of that I skipped over. Like I mentioned, probably a lot of opportunities like, all right, I don't have those 2 years of experience in this specific thing because I didn't work there. I only worked here. So maybe stick with it, number one. If there are things, if you see positions that aren't exactly what you want, but you have interest in, maybe try that as well. That's actually how I got my job at the NBA. It was towards the end of my search. I was not even looking for a job at the NBA. I was just looking for some kind of tech developer job. And I think the title was junior developer / coordinator. I had no idea what that meant. But it had web, it had developer, and I liked an MBA. So I'm like, all right, this might be kind of cool. I literally got that job with 3 months of web development experience. So obviously when I got there, didn't do much web development because they didn't know what I was doing yet. But in a position like that, they had a lot of manual tasks. I knew how to program, so like, oh, this is not manual anymore. Now it's automated. I have more time. I can learn. You can give me more projects. So yeah, main tips: stick with it. Don't get discouraged. Keep going. And if you see maybe a business or a company that you have interested in, but not necessarily the exact position, apply for that position. As Brian was mentioning, if you can get your foot in the door, go to the interview, you might meet other people at that interview. And they're like, oh, what are you interested in? Oh, I can let you speak to this hiring manager and you can get a foot in that way. So yeah, just definitely stick with it.
Brennan, what are you looking for to do?
That's a great question. I feel like I've spent this past year out of college exploring different parts of the tech field. Like Tierney brought this up. Like there are so many different things you can do. I was a web developer for 6 months. And just in the field of web development, there's like designers and there's front-end developers and there's like databases. There's like a whole security thing. So I've been like trying to explore the field and sort of narrow that down. And to answer your question, I feel like I've narrowed it down to like the design aspect of things, whether it be like user experience design or like graphic design, animation, video game design. Like I feel like I'm a very visual learner and a very visual person. But sometimes it's hard to find that because it's almost on like the edge of the tech field. It's kind of hard to find jobs that like combine the technical aspect of things and the like more creative aspect of things.
Yeah, the one thing I would add, Brennan, especially not being in tech but not being an engineer myself, product's a different role, but also I can appreciate that. And the one thing I would add to what Jeremy said was leverage the Rhodes network, because when I graduated, I didn't know product management was a career path. Like I didn't know what most things that have been discussed were career paths, like on this panel. And so we may not be a technical school inherently, but there is a growing workforce that is in this field that have engineering contacts, UX contacts. And so even though we may not have a lot of direct Rhodes designers, the second and third degree connections may be there. And so wherever you can leverage that network, I would be very surprised, if you reached out to an alum that wouldn't be willing to have an intro conversation and just try to hear what you're thinking about and maybe give you some other thoughts in that regard.
Yes, and on that note, Brennan, I actually want to put you in contact with the recruiter that reached out to me about this Juice Plus opportunity, because he may have something for you. And also, like hearing about your interests, I also want to put on the table business intelligence, BI analyst work. So it's still technical, but when you're writing reports and building dashboards for decision makers, you also get to use that creative side of your brain. So that's another set of jobs that you may want to look at. And as far as like the fatigue goes, like you're still moving towards your goal. Like it's a lot, but you're doing something, and that's something to be proud of.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tierney's point about dashboards is excellent. I had a company reach out to me today. I'm not the person who designs the dashboards within Ookla by any means, but there are a lot of companies out there that do that. We're all overwhelmed with the amount of information that's coming at us all day long. The number of emails that we get, and the number of texts that we're getting from friends and family, and now, you know, companies want our mobile number so they can text us and let us know when our oil change is finished or whatever, and then they want to market to you through your text. People are so into, and when you move into a business, the larger the business, the more information that the leaders of that business are trying to bring in and absorb and consume so that they can make the best business decision possible. And these dashboards have gotten very, very popular with companies who are just trying to deal with all of these different inputs. And how do I organize it in a way where I can better understand it? And if you've got skill sets that bridge some of those gaps between the design, the interface design, and understanding the data behind it, if you can figure out what it is that business leader, that business executive, that team leader needs to see, then that's a very valuable thing, and it's why these dashboard companies have done well. I would also look at, are you here in Memphis, or are you where many of us are, or are you somewhere else?
Right now I'm in Florida, but I'm very mobile at the moment. Like, I'm staying with some friends, just because of this whole pandemic thing.
Yeah.
I'm actually like interviewing for a job at St. Jude right now. So like I have been considering like moving to Memphis, or really any major city. I like living in a big city.
For people who are in Memphis, I'm actually kind of pushing them toward logistics. If you think about how many things are being delivered to people's front doors at this point, right? And transporting those goods and figuring out how to move that around. And you're going to have, Florida there's plenty of logistics that take place in Florida as well. But you've got, Florida has been particularly badly hit on the economy with being so dependent upon tourism and hospitality industries, right? So I get that. But these companies are all going to be looking for an edge, a way to bounce back. And sometimes just smaller outfits are looking to bring some of that expertise in-house. You know, looking at a retirement property, how can they, now I'm going to the other extreme. How can we attract people to our retirement property? And then we've also got to have technical expertise, on staff that can go help folks that just can't get up and running on their computers. And it literally, you could go find a position like that. It may not be what you want to do permanently, but it could very well lead to something, because ultimately they will hire larger companies to come in and run fiber, handle security, and it can lead to so many different things. If you just have a job that gives you connections to other people and other companies, that gives them an opportunity to spot you at work.
Okay, yeah, what I'm hearing is like it's more important to get your foot in the door than to like land your dream job right out the gate.
I worked at Macy's, Goldsmith's department store, folding towels in the linen.
Wow.
Okay, and worked in the men's department after that for a while. Selling, everything from T-shirts to suits. Well, the suit salespeople were they were a different group, but we had to manage them. Okay, so it doesn't matter what your first job is. What matters is that you have that first job to give you some breathing room to go find what you really want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's been my life since November. It's just like, at first I was like, oh, like, I'm a fresh grad. I have this like web development experience. I'm gonna get like the job that I want. But what I'm realizing is that like a lot of jobs, and someone else brought this up too, it was like a lot of jobs will want like 2 to 3 years of experience for an entry-level position. And that would either like deter me from applying altogether, or like I would still apply, but like I feel like I didn't put that like energy and enthusiasm in because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. I sort of like ruined my chances before I even took them. So like hearing all this is really encouraging to just sort of like get back out there and take my time and sort of just like go for opportunities as they come.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing to that. Excuse me. In the meantime, like if you see parts of applications, part of job responsibilities that you're interested in, and you have free time, a lot of things in the tech world, you can go download a free trial and go try it out. You can go like, let me try this React tutorial. Let me go try this Sketch tutorial. Do I like this? I don't know. You can try out Sketch. Maybe let me try some design. Like, I don't like spending all this time dragging these things around. I don't want to do design anymore. You can kind of key in on things you might be interested in, and even through doing tutorials, you're like, I didn't like this part of it, but I actually really like this part of it. So, but then trying new things on your own as well, even without getting the job, you might kind of help key in on different areas you might be interested in.
Yeah, that's really true. Like I'm building an app right now from the ground up by myself, which is really exhausting. But it's like I had to learn like design, and like I took this whole course on like UX design. I had to learn how to use like designing software, and then you move on. You're like, okay, well now I have to learn how to build like an app in Android Studio, and then I have to learn how to like build a database so I can host all this information. Oh, and then I have to learn about like security. So like it's a little overwhelming, but it is helping me figure out what I do and don't like in the tech field. And I definitely think I prefer like the design and front end aspect of things. I've been stuck on this like database problem for 2 days actually, and I'm not enjoying it. But I'm learning, through the process.
Well, that not giving up is so important. That job I told you about that got me into the wireless telephone industry, I actually didn't get it the first time I applied. I went down there, did my interview. I didn't have any sales experience. The guy was like, when I called him back, I didn't hear from them. I called him back. He said, well, we gave the position to somebody else. So, okay. So it was another 3 or 4 months before they opened it up and added some additional positions. And I went down there and interviewed again. And I still didn't hear back from them. But I continued to interview other places. And I got another job offer, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. So I called the guy that ultimately did hire me back down at Cellular One, and I said, I have another job offer. I want to come work for you. But I've got to give these guys an answer before 5 o'clock this afternoon. So I need to know from you within the next 90 minutes whether you're going to let me have that job. And that was ballsy, right? And that's what he wanted. He wanted someone who would close, as they say in the sales business. Can you close on the deal? I was going to be gone. He could not have me after that. I made him want to hire me on. So, but if I hadn't done that, I have no doubt that I would never have gotten that job because I didn't have that experience. You've got to talk your way past whatever that barrier is. In my case, it was sales experience. In your case, it's something else. Whatever it is that you're trying to apply for. You've got to convince them that if I don't know it, I can learn it because I'm smart enough. I've got what it takes to come be a good employee for you and produce.
Thank you all for those answers, and Brendan, thank you for that question. Are there any other questions? Ricky, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask what advice you guys have for someone who's going to start out their career. Is there something you wish you would have done differently, or something you would have done more of, something you wish you wouldn't have done at all? I mean,
Yeah, I think looking back, especially on a first job that I really learned I didn't like in like a pretty short time. And that's okay. Like, that's good. That's great learning. You find one thing you shouldn't be doing over the long haul. That doesn't need to take away from the present either. And there are probably a lot of skills that you can learn even doing something you don't like, not forever, but I wish, looking back, I wish I wasn't so frustrated in some of those moments and feeling like I need to sprint out of the current opportunity being a 22-year-old with a year of experience. You know, like that's a hard pivot to make. And so, especially when you're trying to move into industries that, you know, you're not coming from Stanford, MIT, Georgia Tech, you know, not a premier tech school that's feeding so many of these entry-level programs at Amazon, Google, Apple, whatever. And so, having some patience, you know, be challenging your role, trying to take more things on, but be patient in the process too, and kind of, you know, learn to love that process a little bit, because it is a bit of a toil, but there are good soft skills that you'll develop. And I wish I was a little better about that earlier in my career.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate my initial advice of just like making sure you keep your mind open about different opportunities, because it's 2020. Everybody needs tech. So one thing that, so things sort of fell into place for me. But before I found my place at Rhodes, career-wise, I had this angst about me, thinking like all the opportunities were at a Google or a I don't know, Microsoft, or like specifically the companies that you think of when you think tech. But again, like there's an entire IT team at Rhodes. This Juice Plus place, they've got a whole IT team. They've got a business intelligence team. There are more opportunities out there than like the standard, like a web developer or like developing apps or programs. You know, there's a lot out there, a lot of opportunities to explore.
Just because a company is not primarily a tech company or technology based doesn't mean what you're potentially looking for isn't there. You know, I know people who love event planning, and they work in student activities at a college because that's all you do. You plan events for a particular population. So, you know, even if it doesn't sound like the most direct route, it might end up being the most direct route to get to where you want to be.
I would also encourage you, talk to everybody within your, you know, whatever profession you choose, whatever business you're working within, talk to as many people as you can and understand what they do. What do they do that supports the business? What do they do that supports their industry? Because if you want to ultimately become a leader within that organization, you've got to have a network of other people in other departments, because that's what the leaders do. They don't just supervise, you know, this group of 8 employees or 12 employees or whatever it may be. They're actually coordinating with the other departments. And the higher up the chain you get, the more different things you have going on that you've got to recognize. The earlier that you understand the other parts of the business that you don't work in, the better the opportunity is going to be for you to move into a leadership role that connects those different pieces.
Thank you.
And guys, we are right at 6:30, so I don't want to keep people any longer than I, you know, requested their time. So thank you to our panelists for being with us today. We greatly appreciate your advice and experience in this field and your willingness to share that with our students today and our alums. So thank you so much for being here, and everyone have a great day and be safe.
Did Sandy want to announce the FedEx hackathon real quick?
It's current students only. We figured that.
Instantly.
So, oh well, you know, we try. So, but yeah, if Ricky and Brenda, if y'all have any questions about anything or find someone you want to get in touch with, please let me, Tracy, or Sandy know. We're happy to help connect you with people. I'm sure any of the panelists here today are very happy to be resources as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to
Reach
see
out,
you all.
LinkedIn, everything.
All right,
Yeah, thank you
really
all.
good.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, y'all have a good night.
Thank
Bye.
you too.
Happy birthday,
Bye.
Tierney.
Yes, happy birthday!
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.